So UFL is fully out, and the biggest question I think everybody will always ask is, can it defeat FIFA, or FC in fact? Can it take over EA Sports? Can it do anything along that lines? And I think no matter what football game you get, if it's going to be a 2K FIFA, which is in rumours, if it's a PES, a Pro Evolution Soccer, or even UFL, it's going to take time. Now, has this game got the bases down, or is it just another pay-to-win metric to get a quick bunch of cash, to be honest? And to be honest, I feel like this is the problem when any football game's going to kind of rear its head, is the main strategy will always be to make money. Of course it will be. Like most games now, the in-game currency has absolutely skyrocketed. And especially with the EA metric, we've seen that game go from no packs, no points at all, to then selling like £850 worth of packs each person on a Tuesday. Random Tuesday, middle of October, middle of November. Heck, we'll have like a grand and a half in the middle of May. There is just so much when it comes to in-game currency, and even down to mobile games, even down to Need for Speed, that really is just racing. That is going to be the biggest problem. And if they've not had, like FIFA back in the day, the time to mature, to grow an audience, to grow a stable community before launching 191 million CP and 160,000 RP down people's throats, then that's kind of fair enough. There's nothing you can compete there. Like, you're going to have to go against the big boys. And unfortunately, games are going to be in terms of getting money from them. The game is technically free if you wait until, I think it's like the 5th of December, or you can pay like £12 or £20, there's a few different versions, to get a little bit of a bonus, and also then an 8-day early access, which is fair enough. Like, at least £12. I mean, I'm getting the game for free if I want to wait, or I'll get a little bit of extra incentive. I get to play the game a little bit early and really test out before the masses come on here. So I think that is a fair enough metric. It's one thing that I do think FC will follow at some point in terms of making the game free, so that then they get the people in to maybe spend points. And realistically, if they get you hooked on points, you're probably spending more than what the game would actually cost. So I can just see that being the metric that most people have. And the biggest thing that I think that comes across when you go onto UFL is the minimal amount of game modes that you've got. You've got the play online, you've got ranked and casual, so obviously it is just playing against a randomer and then playing against your friends. You've got play local, which is the standard, so you've got obviously playing a single player game versus yourself or a second controller in your house or on your Xbox, PlayStation. We have the My Club, which is kind of built into the mode itself. So obviously here, if you look at your squad, you kind of have this as your ultimate team sort of thing. You've got your reserves, and then you've also got your main team. This can be played online, which is the kind of whole point of it, and then that's kind of just then playing in the local, or you can obviously play online with it and you'll go against other people's My Clubs. There is plenty of customization, is the one thing that I do like with the game. Again, you've got to pay for some of them, which is what it is sort of thing. So if we go back to kind of the default, you can apply either one of them, and then you can add a new kit if you want. At the minute, by the looks of it, the major sponsor they've got is going to be Adidas, and then obviously I cannot remember what that badge is. I cannot remember the actual sponsor, but regardless, Adidas seems to be the biggest one they've got. Obviously, Ronaldo, I believe, being licensed with them is going to be a massive factor. As we know, Ronaldo is a big part in the game. I don't know if he owns the full share or he's just a massive investor in the game, and also the sole ambassador of this game as well. We also then have the boots. That is pretty standard, as we know with most games. It's nice to always have a different amount of boots in the game. They are going to add more by the looks of it. You've obviously got different balls that you can choose, different gloves, and also some badges. And the one thing that kind of really sticks to you when playing the game is when you go into My Local, and I think this is for anybody, which is understandable because licensing is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You have only got 29 different clubs that you can actually participate in, and you've got AS Monaco, Porto, PSV, Besiktas, Shakhtar, and that is all the licensed clubs. Everybody else is just random. So obviously we go to Carnival FC. You will have a few different players in there. So obviously when we look at this one, if we go to the teams, if we go into game plan, you'll be able to see that you've obviously got almost like a kind of a made-up team as such. You've got obviously Martinez, you got Vinny, another Martinez, I suppose, Douglas Luiz, McAllister, Valverde. So you've kind of got a mixture of teams, which is very interesting, I must admit. It's a different way of doing it. I know Pez kind of got around it, or at least had a sponsor for the team, but didn't necessarily have one for the badge. So that's where we had Red Devils, I think it was London Blue, and you had all of the different ones like that. So I can understand in terms of licensing, it's going to take some time. EA have an absolute hold on that market because they have most definitely only let a few slip. And not only that, they are going against the big boys. They've got FC kind of getting all the licensing, and then also Pez, I can't remember what it's actually called now, I don't know if it's changed, but they are battling for the licenses as well. So adding another person into the mix is never going to be easy. You can get image rights for players, hence why we can go and buy an Mbappe, a Ronaldo, a Vinny, because it's a player owned license rather than a team. So that's why when you go into the transfer market, we can see everybody. Nobody really has their own kit on. So that kind of gets rid of the licensing for the team as such, and they can go for kind of more of them ultimate team aspect teams, which is a decent way of doing it. It's something different, which I think fair enough too. Then when you think about that's kind of really it. You've got skins in the store, which is very much like your evolutions, kind of adding a little bit of extra design to the cards. They're kind of going in with packs. As you can see, it contains 2 players skins of different variety, and that's kind of it really with them. You obviously can have the storage, you have different events that are going to give you different objectives, and obviously some CP as well, which is always nice. So you can obviously actually earn the CP as well, because you also can obviously buy them. That's going to be the natural point of call that they are trying to get people to. Now you can obviously buy league points, and you can also buy credit points, all the way up to 9,500 league points, which is £67. You can buy credit points up to 250 million, which is 33.49. And then obviously the packs, you can combine these two to get the maximum amount, and you get it like £10 to £15 cheaper if you're buying both at the same time. Now I think when it comes to buying points personally for this sort of game, I would definitely wait. I think this game, like many others, will only have a short shelf life if it's not updated, or at least kept up to date with, before people just get bored. Because there's only so much that you want to do. Where is there new skins coming out? Is there new cards coming out? Is this the whole year cycle? Is there even going to be a second one? That's going to be the biggest question everybody's going to have. So before pumping any sort of money into it, I would definitely give it a go to start with, and really find your enjoyment with it. Because at least I say with a very clenched teeth is, at least with FC, they do give us content. I'm not saying it's always incredible, and I'm not always saying it's always worth it as such, but it most definitely is better than a day one game. Most definitely, compared to if you went back all the way down to like FIFA 99, or even if you went to say like before Ultimate Team was invented, and you go to say 2005. I know it came out in 2009, and you said in the inflation circuit, say if we drop it by £50, that you could go and spend £30 to £40 on a game, because back then that's how much they cost, and you could go and put that in to get some cards, you would be laughed at. Whereas I think now it's kind of become more accepted that that is what happens, and it's rightly or wrongly so. So I think that is the biggest thing when it comes to the game, is how long can it truly last? Is it got a shelf life, or is it just going to be one that we think, okay, that was all right, it weren't terrible, they've kind of got something going there, whether they introduce many different features, and to be honest, whether they can get around patents, or patents, whatever you want to call the royalties of Ultimate Team. I know Ultimate Team is very much an EA based stuff, whereas like 2K have the My Player for NBA. It's whether they can get around all that. I'm not clued up on what is completely legal to do and what is an infringement on EA's circuit, because naturally football games can't just go over and just take the exact same model of Ultimate Team and try and produce it themselves, because naturally they will get sued. We've seen the same for Power World, as much as it doesn't seem to have made that much of an effect. But also then the one thing they've got to get right, which I think everybody is very interested in, because FIFA's game style most definitely feels decent enough, but we're starting to get to the point where animations are becoming almost a hindrance. Adding more and more in is becoming incredibly difficult to just not have so much RNG on the game. Now, when it comes to a football game in terms of this, I'm not a big fan personally, but then also I'm not a big fan of something like PES either. I just feel like it is very arcadey, very buggy, a little bit slow, and sometimes just not as responsive as I'd like it to be. And I think that comes down to then having a game that is almost 20 years old, having multiple titles, multiple times to change engines, to change graphics, to change animations, and then having your very first game. For a very first game, I'd say it's got legs. It's got something. The graphics side of stuff is looking pretty good. I feel like the actual animations of kind of shooting isn't great in my opinion. I think it could be worse. It most definitely could be worse. But I do think you've kind of got to get used to it. It's like anything. If you go from Call of Duty to Battlefield to Medal of Honor, it's going to take some difference to really try and get used to it. So I can kind of give the leniency on that. Whereas most definitely to say I would play 10, 15, 20 games a day at the start of this game, I probably wouldn't to start with. And I think that comes down to having the choice of either EA or UFL at the moment. Whether 2K can come in and absolutely blow it out of the water is very interesting. But I think as kind of like an overall, we've kind of been talking about everything so far. Realistically, this game, if it does continue to come out, I really had my kind of almost a very skeptical look of this game is pretty much finished when it got delayed by an extra 2 months on literally a week before it was meant to come out. I was very shocked to see it actually come out, and I really thought this game could have just absolutely flatlined from there. So I'm happy that it has. It's another step in the right direction, because I think even in general, the monopolization of, that was a great save, the monopolization of how EA have taken football games, and PES almost being okay, he stole my celebration, being the second contender and never going to compete with EA. I think it's great that we're starting to see different avenues explored. It'll be very interesting when 2K comes out, and it'll be very interesting to see if we get a UFL 2025. Is it got legs enough to produce the money to warrant having a second game? And to be honest, if you've got an ambassador of kind of Ronaldo, you know full well that at least they've got somebody on their side that is going to put money into it long before it's finished football. And if he can get himself as an icon, that again will be very worrying to see if EA actually even get him as an icon as a full license, or he kind of keeps that for himself and makes it almost an exclusive perk, and that's always going to be an interesting part of the game. So I think in general, I would give it a very average rating. I like what they're doing in terms of trying to kind of stick it to EA in some aspects. I think they definitely need to be careful with how much stuff costs and whether they go fully into that market, because I feel like definitely from what I've seen with NBA and Madden, 2K really like that gambling aspect of buying packs, buying wheels, different scratch cards sort of things. So I think most definitely that one's going to be a very interesting market to see where it truly can go. But this one really could hold its own and have its own niche in terms of how a football game should be presented. And even if it does steal a couple of months worth of spotlight, I think that is going to be the point where EA could produce a better game themselves. And I think that's kind of what we want. We want multiple options, the chances to actually have options of football games, and whatever comes out on best is the one we play.